Okay, continuing with GMOs, The Toxic Truth by Dr. Ingram. I'm Dr. Ingram's son, Ali. Let's think about the milk this time. Cheese, yogurt, ice cream, or any other dairy product, right? Has anybody ever told you at the store, on the label, or any government advisory anywhere that the milk in the US contains a synthetic hormone that's banned in dozens of countries? And this hormone has been directly linked in peer-reviewed studies published in The Lancet to dramatically elevate cancer risk. And when dairies tried to put that information on their own labels, the FDA threatened them, and Monsanto sued them. So, and nobody told you this because the system is designed to make sure you don't find out. Okay, so Dr. Ingram, he documented this in detail, and he simply titled it Deadly Milk. And so that's what we're going to cover today. My father was a doctor. I'm just basically covering his research and his work over 40 books that he wrote. And so we're going to be talking about GMOs, The Toxic Truth. This is the third episode in the series. So the substance at the center of this episode is called bovine growth hormone, or the acronym RBGH. And it's known as bovine somatotropin, or BST. It's a genetically engineered synthetic hormone produced using E. coli bacteria injected into dairy cows to force them to produce more milk. Again, scalability, productivity is really the to maximizing the output is the objective here, it seems. And my father's research was direct about it. It's a carcinogen, his word, not speculation. A conclusion grounded on peer-reviewed literature he spent years accumulating. And here's the international picture, because that matters. So the following countries have banned RBGH. Outright: Canada, the UK, Germany, France, the Netherlands, Austria, Norway, Switzerland, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, the entire EU, and most of South America. Every other major Western nation looked at the substance and said no. So based on the same peer published research that was available to regulators in the US said yes, and has never reversed that decision. So Dr. Ingram wrote plainly, the US is the land of the free and maliciously poisoned. Those are strong words, but when you go through the evidence, it's difficult to argue with. So the hormone produced by that same company that brought the world this wonderful thing called Agent Orange, Monsanto. So, well, my father noted that connection deliberately. It's not incidental. It speaks to be a pattern of what happens when a chemical company is allowed to operate inside the food supply without meaningful regulatory restraint. And that goes into the food of millions of Americans, especially children who consume it every day, in the belief that it's wholesome and safe. So let's walk through what exactly Dr. Ingram's research documented about what happens in the body when the hormone enters it. So the injection of RBGH into cows caused a significant increase in a compound called insulin-like growth factor 1, IGF-1. So that name tells you almost everything you need to know. It causes cell growth. Uncontrolled aberrant cell growth is the mechanism of cancer. And that is not a fringe position. That is a consensus of scientific literature. Okay, in the study published in The Lancet, rated by my father as the most credible medical journal in the world, following some 400 women with breast cancer and compared them to 620 controls, the investigators measured IGF-1 levels from blood drawn before any cancers developed. What they found was unambiguous, and in premenopausal women, elevated IGF-1 levels were directly associated with breast cancer development, and the risk increase was documented at 700%. This is 700%. A separate study published in the journal Science in 1998 found that men with the highest levels of IGF-1 had a 4-fold increase in developing prostate cancer. So here's the critical link. So the primary source of IGF-1 in the Western diet is milk from cows treated with this synthetic hormone. Monsanto's own studies confirm it. The IGF-1 in RBGH treated milk is present at levels up to tenfold of untreated milk. So Professor Samuel Epstein, a physician and professor of environmental medicine at the University of Illinois School of Public Health, the most published individual on the dangers of RBGH, according to Dr. Ingram, calculated the following: if a 9 to 1 pound child consumes approximately 1 quart of hormone-treated milk daily, the exposure to carcinogen IGF-1 represents a 1,250-fold increase over the established margin of safety. And Professor Samuel described the estimate as conservative. It didn't account for the fact that pasteurization actually increases the hormone levels by up to 70%. Nor did it account for the fact that the synthetic IGF-1 is 10 times more aggressive in carcinogen activity than naturally occurring form. So conservatively, a child drinking a quart of RBGH milk is exposed to carcinogen compounds at roughly 1,200 times the safety threshold. And no label tells them or their parents what is happening. So my father documented a full list of what RBGH treated milk contains compared to untreated milk. It's not speculation. It includes the findings from Monsanto's own studies. The residues from bovine growth hormone, a synthetic carcinogen that the human body cannot readily process or break down. Most of the molecules remain intact after digestion and continue causing biological disruption. Elevated pus, dead white blood cells, blood, and other contaminants. The result, mastitis, a painful udder infection that RBGH dramatically increases in cows. It is not eliminated by pasteurization. Dangerously elevated IGF-1 at up to tenfold the normal level. Bizarre proteins not found in milk, normal milk, direct result of the genetic and hormonal disruption of the cow's biology. Higher than normal bacteria levels, including genetically mutated bacteria, which are antibiotic resistant. Higher than usual levels of antibiotics because the cows with RBGH-induced mastitis are given antibiotics to manage the infection, and those antibiotics end up in the milk. Lower than normal levels of vitamins. The forced overproduction of milk dilutes the nutritional density. So Dr. Ingram's summary was direct. Unless you can verify that a dairy product is RBGH free, it must be regarded as unfit for human consumption. And those are his words. Dr. Ingram, one of the top researchers on natural wellness in the world. God bless his soul. He passed away about 4 years ago now. And so now we're covering his work to make sure that his work gets out there and is available to people. And this is based on writings of peer-reviewed literature and the company's own findings, really. So here's what makes the story about something more than just a dangerous product. It's a story about what was known, when it was known, and what was done with that knowledge. See, the evidence of harm was clear before RBGH was ever approved. As early as 1989, Professor Samuel, who we referred to earlier, wrote a letter and formal report to FDA commissioner documenting the potential public health hazards of biosynthetic milk hormones. That report was published in the International Journal of Health Sciences in 1990, so it's scientific record. Okay, meetings were held within the scientific community, and Dr. Ingram documented that there was near unanimous concern among independent scientists about the potential for long-term harm, in particularly cancer. Only dissenters were the FDA and major chemical companies. So German veterinarians refused to administer RBGH on the grounds that doing so violated their professional code of conduct, the code that forbids intentionally harming animals. Now, they looked at the same evidence and concluded that the harm was so clear that injecting it would be ethically prohibited under their professional obligations. In 1999, the same year, the FDA approved RBGH for use in U.S. Dairy cattle. The Lancet published IGF-1 breast cancer study. The scientific community had published the evidence of harm in the same year, the regulatory agency approved the product. Okay, so right after all of these findings were published, it was approved. So it was approved anyway because the FDA at the time was infested with Monsanto lobbyists. Now, this is the section that's really important to understand, the suppression of labeling, really, because it removes any remaining doubt as to whether this was an oversight or a deliberate act. So our BGH was approved, and some dairies chose not to use it because many farmers, as Dr. Ingram documented, didn't want to. Those dairies naturally wanted to tell their customers, that they were RGBH free. They wanted to label it as RBGH, I should say, RBGH free or hormone free, which is a straightforward factual statement. And the FDA told them they couldn't. The agency issued a statement declaring that labeling milk as RBGH free or free was potentially false and misleading under federal law. So their stated basis was that no significant difference. There's no significant difference between the milk of treated and untreated cows. Okay, so my father went through exactly what that claim required the FDA to ignore in order to make it. It required ignoring that the RBGH treated milk contains residue from synthetic carcinogens not present in untreated milk. It required ignoring that the treated milk contains elevated pus, bacteria, and antibiotic residue. It required ignoring that the up to 10-fold elevation of IGF-1. It required ignoring the higher fat content and the presence of fatty acids not found in natural milk. It required ignoring Monsanto's own data, which confirmed all of the above. In no way could you really make the claim that there is no substantial difference between the two. So they're clearly and categorically substantially different based on what the science is showing here. But that threat did work, and the dairies that tried to label their milk received legal pressure and were sued by Monsanto. Naturally, inclined dairies succumbed, and the consumer was left. In Dr. Ingram's words, ill-informed. And the incidence of a rare form of breast cancer, ductal carcinoma, affecting the milk-secreting tissue more than doubled in the U.S. following the introduction of RBGH. Dr. Ingram documented this, and still no label change was mandated. One final data point on the record before we move into some practical advice. Precocious puberty, the early onset of sexual development in children, is a condition documented in published literature, markedly more common in countries where RBGH treated dairy products are consumed. So Dr. Ingram cited observations from parents and physicians documenting that children consuming commercial milk and dairy products are developing significantly earlier than historical norms. In all other Western countries where RBGH is banned, the condition in RBGH correlated patterns is essentially absent. It's a U.S. phenomenon, and it tracks directly with our RBGH introduction. Okay, so Frank O. Bastian, a researcher in degenerative neurological conditions, is cited in Dr. Ingram's research, clarifying that the injection of such biological toxins into animals increased the odds of destructive lesions 1 million-fold more than simply consuming them. The cows are being injected, their milk is being consumed, and the toxin travels the full chain into the food supply. Okay. The rest of the world looked at this and said no. One country said yes and threatened the dairies that tried to tell the citizens what they were drinking. How can we protect ourselves? So this is solvable at the consumer level. You don't have to wait for FDA to reverse course. You can remove the substance from your family's diet starting with your next grocery run. So you have your USDA certified organic dairy. The organic certification legally prohibits the use of RBGH. Any dairy product carrying the USDA organic seal cannot come from cows treated with this hormone. This is the most reliable protection. Then there's the RBGH free or RBST free labeling. Following legal battles that Dr. Ingram documented, the courts ultimately ruled that dairies have the right to label their products this way. So many independent dairies do now. Okay, so that was a big win. Thank God. Grass-fed certifications, while not a direct RBGH prohibition, I should say, grass-fed certification typically comes from smaller operations that do not use synthetic hormones. Imported dairy products from the EU, UK, Canadian, or Australian sources, all of these have banned RBGH by law. Products originating from those dairy systems cannot contain it. Dairy products with the highest exposure risk, standard conventional commercial fluid milk. This is the primary vehicle. If it doesn't carry one of those certifications above, assume it's RBGH treated cows. Commercial cheese requires significant volumes of milk per pound. The exposure is much higher. Commercial ice cream and yogurt, check the dairy sourcing. Mass market brands overwhelmingly use conventional milk. Pizza and restaurant food, the vast majority of commercial cheese used in restaurant cooking and processed food manufacturing comes from commercial dairy. Unless the restaurant sources organic, assume RBGH treated dairy is in any cheese containing dish. Children's food. So this is something that we have to be very, very careful of. The IGF-1 exposure calculation for children is dramatically worse than for adults given their body weight. So if children are consuming dairy daily, which most are, the sourcing matters more for them than anything else. So there's practical steps. Start with fluid milk. Switching to organic or verified RBGH-free milk is the single highest impact change that we can really do. It's the most direct and concentrated exposure point. Check the store brand. Many retailers like have Walmart's Great Value brand, Costco, Kirkland, and Target's Good and Gather have committed to RBGH-free sourcing for their private label dairy lines. You don't always have to pay a premium to avoid the hormone. And for children specifically, Dr. Ingram's research on the precocious puberty data should be taken seriously by every parent of a child consuming commercial dairy. This is not an abstract risk. It's documented, observable, a fact that correlates with RBGH introduction and is absent really in the countries that have banned it. So here's what Dr. Ingram's documented, what we went through today. RBGH is a genetically engineered synthetic hormone injected into U.S. dairy cattle to increase milk production. It's banned in dozens of countries, every other major Western nation, based on the same published research that's available in the U.S. Okay, the injection of RBGH causes a dramatic increase in IGF-1 in the milk. And then the Lancet study documented a 700% increase in breast cancer risk in premenopausal women with elevated IGF-1. A study in Science documented a 4-fold increase in prostate cancer risk in men. Monsanto's own data confirmed IGF-1 elevations. And then Professor Samuel Epstein calculated that a child drinking 1 quart of RBGH-treated milk daily is exposed to carcinogenic compounds at approximately 1,200 times established safety threshold. Dairies tried to label their milk RBGH-free, and the FDA declared it potentially false and misleading. Monsanto sued the dairies, and the customer was kept uninformed for a while. Ductal carcinoma, a rare form of breast cancer, more than doubled in the U.S. following the introduction of RBGH. And precocious puberty in children correlates directly with commercial dairy consumption. It's absent in countries where the hormone is banned. The USDA Organic legally prohibits it. Major retailers now source the private label dairy are BGH free, so protection is accessible. So this is all this. There's peer-reviewed literature and government records. He documented it so that people could find the truth, and it was available. So we're making it available. And in the final episode, we're going to talk about aspartame. And a GMO product that is also genetically engineered, and the dozens of names under which soy hides in your food, as well as the practical actions that you can do. So we're going to continue talking about Dr. Ingram's research, and he wrote over 40 books on natural wellness. It'll take a while, but we're gonna cover, with God's permission, we're going to cover as much of that as we can, and wish you the best with health and wellness. And bye for now.